Today's episode, I am so excited, is our first video episode. And that is because we are not going anonymous today. Today, we are uniquely inviting a new kind of guest on our show. We are joined today by Isabella. She is a passionate practitioner who has dedicated her life to women's health. And the good thing about Isabella is that you can work with her no matter where you are in the world. So that's pretty amazing. So don't let distance stop you from working with Isabella, okay? Our conversation today covers a wide range of deeply relevant topics. We talk about starting over mid career, navigating PCOS, hormone imbalances, mold toxicity, Lyme disease. We talk about Epstein Barr virus, autoimmune conditions, which are near and dear to my heart. And we talk about the long shadow of childhood trauma. Now, that's something I think many people can relate to. One message, however, stands out. To me, at least it did. Emotions are stored in our bodies. When your voice is silenced, for instance, when you repress yourself for whatever reason, it doesn't just affect your emotional well being, it can manifest as physical illness. Isabella approaches healing in a way that honors the whole person, the body, the mind, the spirit, and the soul. Her work reminds us that true healing is not something that's compartmentalized. It's emotional and physical, and both of those are often intertwined. So, how does this apply to you? And how does this apply to me? Whether you are struggling with chronic illness, emotional wounds, trauma, or you're just looking for a fresh start in your life, this episode offers insight and hope. Isabella's story might just be the key to unlocking your own and possibly mine as well. I want to say that we recorded this at different times, which is why you might see me in different outfits and even Isabella in different outfits. So I wanted to give you that disclaimer, and without further ado, welcome to All Things Hidden. Hi, Isabella. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing well.
So you work in the health and wellness space. Tell me a little bit about what you do and what your credentials are, who you work with.
I am a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and women's health coach, which is really just a fancy way of saying I work with women to help them uncover healing opportunities. With that being said, I use functional lab testing as well as coaching techniques to really dive deep into people's health and wellness, help them achieve their goals, feel like they're empowered on their health journey, and they really are able to rebuild that connection they have, that mind body connection. Because I do think that's a big part of the conversation is like that missing connection that can lead to other disease, illness. I don't diagnose, I don't say you have this condition, this sickness, etc., because that's for medical professionals. I more focus on what areas of improvement, what areas of healing can we address so that you can feel empowered in your day to
Mm,
day.
I love that. I love that. That's a different take on things, is the empowerment. And you're specifically focusing on women, which is really
Mhm.
cool because women's bodies are very intricate. Yeah. And then also the mind body connection. That's something different as well. So
Yeah.
I want to hear all about how you got into your own specific genre of health and wellness. I would love to hear
Mhm.
about your background. So
Mhm.
let's start there first. Let's start with your background and where you grew up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I am from the Bay Area, so California girly through and through. The way in which I got into it was probably not the traditional route, but I do think it is very common in that I had experiences myself with my health and I developed a passion and an interest for it, and then was like, how do I do this for other people? And I do think that is the way in which a lot of people go about it, especially if it's like a second ish career, if you will. I went to school in San Diego for business and I worked corporate as an intern my senior year of college, all the way through 6 years. From 6 years later, was working at the same company, had really started working up the ladder.
Wow.
Probably in 2018, I experienced my older sister struggling with her fertility. And then my other sister, so I have two older sisters, I'm the youngest. My other sister was struggling a lot with food sensitivities and her mental health and things like that. And I don't know if it was just the combination of both of them or what happened, but at some point, I decided not to put my birth control back in. I was on a Nuva ring at the time. I'm also very open about these things, so
I
hopefully
love it.
that's okay.
I love it. Yes.
Yeah, so I decided not to put my Nuva ring back in. If you're familiar, you have it in for 3 weeks, you take it out, and then you put it back in after you have a quote unquote bleed. So I got a ping from the universe, if you will, that just not to put it back in. Hindsight's 2020. I'm glad I did it because it led me on this journey. Although I
Mm.
wish I would have maybe prepared for it a little bit better, knowing what I know now and how I help women transition off of birth control too. I sent my body into a lot of chaos instead of addressing some of the easy, low hanging fruit healing opportunities when you're coming off of birth control to support that transition a little bit better. So, from coming off of birth control, I experience SIBO, which is small intestinal
Oh.
bacteria overgrowth, very
Mhm.
painful. Leaky gut, severe cystic acne, PCOS. So my cycle would be gone for 60 plus days. Really irregular PMS symptoms. So, like a ton of pain, like 11 out of 10 pain. It was awful.
Yeah.
And I thought I was doing everything right. I was working out. I used to work at Orange Theory. So I was working out like a ton. Not that I think Orange Theory is bad, but it just wasn't right for my body, eating a salad with chicken every day and
Yeah.
these things that I thought was right, which I wasn't getting any answers about my acne, which was probably the biggest trigger and biggest motivation because I was a young girl and I saw it on my face, or a young woman. I saw it on my face every day and it was really frustrating,
Right.
especially when you think you're doing all these things right. And so started seeing a naturopathic doctor. Both of my sisters had been diagnosed with PCOS. So then we safely assumed I also had PCOS. I never got the official diagnosis because I didn't go get an ultrasound and a few other things that you need
Yeah.
from a gynecologist to get like, or OBG to get like an official diagnosis. But we just proceeded. I had all the symptoms of it. So we proceeded like
Mhm.
that. I worked with her for probably 2-ish years, saw some improvement, some not so great improvement. Switched to a different naturopath because I moved from San Diego back up to the San Francisco area. We also started seeing some improvements, but nothing was like sticking. And I was getting really frustrated, but I was still really interested in health. It was one thing that never went away. Like I never got
Mm.
tired of talking about it or learning more about it. And so I had this realization that what I was doing day to day was not really aligned with my passions and not really where I wanted to continue. I was in IT service management and I was not interested in it that much. I learned a lot, got a lot of opportunities, but it just wasn't for me. I was able to take a break from work though. So I took a 2 month sabbatical from work. And during that time, I was like, okay, I really need to sit down and think about what I want to do and how I want to move forward. I had a great manager at the time who allowed me that space and that time to figure it out before I just left with no plan.
That's
In that
awesome.
time, I talked to a couple people that were in my network, and I found that you could be in this health space without having to fully go back to school. Because just candidly, I still was paying for my college in San Diego. So I was like, I can't
Mhm.
imagine putting more money into more education when I am still paying my
Right.
student loans. Right. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I want to do this, but like, I can't go back to get my master's. It's too much. And I'm sure there were other ways I could have gone about it, but then I got exposed to this other world where you could start doing coaching. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. So I looked into like women's health coaching. They knew I wanted to work with women. I had created such a safe space with my sisters to talk about these
Mhm.
things that I wanted to replicate that space for other women. So I went and learned just like traditional coaching specifically for women. That's a lot of like motivational interviewing and goal setting and habit changes and those types of things. But then I still felt like, how can I build a business off of this? When it's I know so many women do just coaching and they do are really successful, but for me I was like I want to know more about the body, like the details, the science behind it. And
Yeah.
so I went and became an FDN, which is that long title I explained in the beginning.
Mhm.
And that was a couple months program I was doing while I was still working. So I would get up at 5 in the morning, do the program. It was self-paced, but I wanted to get it done so I could really start transitioning. 2023, July 2023 is when I finished the program. I got certified. And I felt, okay, I'm going to launch my business. So I launched my business in August. I got my first paying client, and then it just started trickling from there. And then come December, I was like, I'm just going to commit. And so I committed. I left my job and had to do a couple changes in my lifestyle and my life in general so that I could really focus to build this business. And yeah, I think the really beautiful part is something's right when it, if you will, easy, like things come to you without
Right.
trying too much. Like my first initial clients, like I didn't really have to do a lot of advertising or marketing or anything like that. They just found me or we were in
Wow.
conversation. And so that's when I knew I was like, okay, I didn't even really do much and I still got a couple clients just by chatting with people. And even without knowing it, one of my sisters brought it up to me. She was like, a couple of years ago, we were at Christmas, and one of our cousins was like, I started running and counting my macros, and it's because you told me, you coached me
Oh,
into it, and things like that. So I think it was like naturally a part of who I am is to talk about things, encourage people, and be like a safe space for people. And so that is why I really love what I do.
and you found your niche. You found a
Thank you.
very, I think that's interesting. So you decided, okay, so if we're going to go back, I had
Mhm.
a few questions that popped up.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's so great. It's such a good
Yeah.
story because not everyone finds their place so easy. You did it so well and you had time to pursue it and you just went for it. Do you have a very analytical mind or a business mind, would you say, since you majored in business and got a degree in
Yeah.
business?
I think I might without realizing it,
Mm.
or I think it's that imposter syndrome to be like, oh no, other people are better at business than I am. But yes, I studied business and I understand it. I think it comes natural to me. A lot of those in my family are also entrepreneurs and things like that. So it's easy for me to learn from other people. I think that's also the beauty of being the youngest. I've learned a lot because I'm just absorbing everything that's around me.
Mhm.
So at the same time, though, I'm a very emotional person. I dream big and I also wear my emotions on my sleeves. So I think
Right.
that's also played a big role in like how I've made decisions and moved forward. But at the same time, part of that like business mindset is okay, this needs to make sense before I leave. And what are my safety nets and those types of things too.
Right.
So I think it's a mix of both.
I like that because you're authentic as well and you're real. You place high, it sounds like you place a high value on authenticity, being
Mhm.
real, which is one of the most important things about having a health and wellness coach is that they are like that. I know that's greatly appreciated. I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, and then also with your sisters, so they both, your two older sisters, right?
Mhm.
They both have PCOS.
Yes. So they were both like officially diagnosed. And the reason why too they were diagnosed is because they had cysts on their ovaries. Whereas I
Okay.
haven't been diagnosed having cysts on my ovaries. I think maybe a few, but I don't have that classic symptom of PCOS, but neither of them had acne like I did, or quite as much hair loss or those types of things, or as irregular of cycles. My PCOS was manifested quite differently than both of theirs did. And frankly, I do think my mom had it, like just hearing anecdotally her stories of being menstruating. I'm like, I think you have PCOS, mom.
Yeah. Oh, she went through it without. Oh,
Hmm.
okay. So without having like support or anything like
Right,
that. So,
right.
oh, that's hard. I think so
Yeah,
many women go through so many things and we just repress it and bottle it up and we push through, which is
yeah, absolutely.
a huge issue, I for
Hmm.
sure, because then that it has to come out in other ways, right? The body has
Hmm.
to, I don't know, repressing things. That's one of my issues is that I've always repressed my emotions and my thoughts and tried to just put them back to the side and let's think about everybody else. Let's talk about how you're
Yeah.
doing and how you're doing. And then it definitely has come out in my body, 100%.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
Do you notice it in like specific situations where it's like more than others or certain people or things like that, and then you feel it in your body more?
That's a good question. So do I notice it like the pain in my body or the stress or if
Mhm.
I have a flare?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. It's in situations with certain people who I have
Mhm.
history of being stressed with. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Cause like for me, I think it's more is more of a delayed reaction. So like
Yes.
I don't necessarily in the moment feel it, but it's like later on I'll be like, why am I anxious right now? Or why does my stomach hurt? And I have to think about, okay, what's gone on in my day? Like in the middle of having a conversation with somebody who's
Mhm.
triggering me or something, I don't process it that fast. And my body has almost like a delayed reaction, which I think was hard for me on this journey because I was like, I don't think that person stressed me out or that job stressed me out. But then I'm later, months later, dealing with acne and stomach issues and all these things. And I'm like, that had to come from somewhere. So it's
Right.
like that delayed reaction or that me trying to compartmentalize in the moment so that I can survive, which is a big part of PCOS being a survival technique that your
Really?
body, yeah, yeah,
Good. Okay, so that's I want to say I agree with that. That is all of my flares, all my autoimmune flares happen
mhm,
after. So it's
yeah,
like when I have a chance to relax, then my body raises my symptoms just come up and
yeah,
then I'll fight them for a while. So I can go
hmm,
through a really stressful time and keep it together,
yeah,
minus being emotionally stressed.
mhm,
And then I'll have a good month or two of flare where I'm physically
hmm,
stressed after that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's so frustrating.
It's why, like,
So
sometimes
frustrating.
when clients go on vacation, they'll pass a parasite or something like that, like, visibly because their body's finally able to relax and do what it needs to do to remove what has been causing additional stress on their body, because it's finally in a state of parasympathetic mode that it can do what it needs to do. Because if you're in fight or flight, your cortisol's high. The thing that people don't realize is, like, high cortisol, you're probably not gonna feel a lot of symptoms because it is
Hmm.
very anti-inflammatory, it is very pro-survival, et cetera, et cetera. The moment that cortisol drops, then you're gonna start feeling things.
Oh, okay. That's, I
Mm.
think, and I've been in fight or flight, honestly, in all transparency, probably, I don't know,
Yeah.
like a decade almost, like
Mm,
honest. Yeah. And I have some dissociation for sure, as far as just in order to get
yeah.
through and be a
Mhm.
happy mom and just, I want to be
Yeah.
happy as well.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a little combination of both, like, trying to
Yeah.
just make it through, but also being realistic with yourself and, like, those kinds of things. But at the same time, sometimes you just wanna do what you need to do to get by.
Yeah.
I read somewhere that a lot of people rewatch TV shows because it's a form of emotional regulation. Sometimes I do need to rewatch a show that I love because I do need that regulation, but I
Wow.
don't feel want to journal about it. I don't feel like doing the deeper work at that time. Like I need
Oh,
surface level support right
yes. Yeah. That's true. I never thought about that with rewatching
now.
shows. I do that a little bit with reality TV because it's so
Mhm.
surface. It's so
Yeah,
surface, and I'm just like, oh, I can relax now. No.
yeah. Yeah.
So tell me more about PCOS. I don't think I actually know a lot about that.
Yeah. So PCOS stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome. And in my opinion, which again, I don't give medical advice or anything like that, but in my opinion, and from my understanding, really more of a cluster of symptoms. I think it
Hmm.
is really frustrating because people hear, I have PCOS, and then they feel like it's a life sentence and that's it. But my job and what I do in my practice is I'm like, okay, you have PCOS, but why? Why do you have
Mm.
PCOS? What was it that triggered your body to feel like it needs to survive and it needs to it these cluster of symptoms are presented. So in historically, PCOS was a survival technique during like famines, for example. Your body would stop ovulating because it knows like we cannot have a child right now. We don't have enough food. We're in
Mm.
fight or flight constantly. We're stressed. Like having a child right now would not be a good option. So your body stops ovulating. So classic PCOS is not in ovulatory cycles, but missing ovulation. So you'll go 60 days, 90 days. Some women go a year without ovulating because their body's in this fight or flight mode constantly.
Wow.
Whether that's from external stressors or internal stressors is the thing that I work on with clients. So a lot of the times, things like blood sugar mismanagement is going to be a really big component of it. When your blood sugar is irregular and your insulin isn't enough to manage it, your body will produce more testosterone because
Mm.
testosterone is a hormone that is very good at managing blood sugar. But as women, we don't have testicles that are producing testosterone all the time. So, one of the things that our body does is these cysts can let off extra testosterone. So, then women with PCOS get cysts because it's helping manage this blood sugar. So if you go upstream and start managing your blood sugar properly, whether that's lifestyle stuff, like actually eating more, because a lot of women with PCOS either overeat like junk food and things, or women like me undereat generally because we're afraid of society telling us we're going to start gaining weight if we
Right.
eat too much. But then that causes the opposite effect because then your body doesn't feel safe.
Yeah.
Other things like having internal stressors like parasites or bacteria or candida, metals, mold, etc., that also stresses your body, which causes blood sugar irregularities. So those are some of the like things that go on with polycystic ovarian syndrome. But as I mentioned, I always ask why. So is it blood sugar irregularities? Why is your body in fight or flight? Is it all lifestyle stuff, or is there stuff internally going on? Like, what is causing it to turn on? And yes, there's probably some genetic components to it. Like, people are more predisposed to being insulin resistant or predisposed to having or detoxification pathways, those types of things, which can then lead. But at the same time, even if you're genetically predisposed, typically that's where epigenetics comes into play. You have to turn that
Oh,
on through
yeah.
lifestyle, through diet, through exposure to things, through traumas, through stress. The other interesting component, and I can ramble on about PCOS all day, so this will be the last thing I
It's
mention.
fascinating.
But the other really interesting thing too is, I don't know if you've seen this, it got popular on like social media and stuff, but the realization that our grandmothers' experiences are imprinted all the way to us, because our grandmothers who, hold our mothers who are going to have all of their eggs already, like that experiences they lived through are imprinted all the way down 2 generations. Really, a
Mm,
lot of women with PCOS are, and this is not a blanket statement, but a lot of women with PCOS are women of color who have experienced generational traumas, or who are the living manifestation of these generational traumas. And
wow.
so that is also something that kind of plays a role in like the spiritual aspect of PCOS. Is, are you now experiencing that trauma that your grandmother went through, just in a
Mm.
different way?
And I have heard about epigenetics. I have not
Mhm.
like dove into it. I'm not
Mhm.
quite sure, but
Yeah.
it's fascinating. So I've studied
Mhm.
it, especially with my education. I've started
Right.
studying it through addiction, actually, which
Mhm.
is said they've done studies about how that is passed down. And even if you stop, or if you don't stop, even your emotional experiences and your stress and your trauma of being a child of an addict can be passed down like to your
Mhm.
grandchildren. And I think that's
Mhm.
fascinating.
Right.
But I would love to dive more into that and figure out what that entails, because that's
Right.
huge. That has so many implications for
Mhm.
what are we actually carrying,
Mhm.
period, and
Right,
what did our
exactly.
ancestors carry. Wow,
So I
that's
don't I don't
fascinating.
think you can ever separate like a health journey from like a mental health journey, or like that
Mm-mm.
emotional spiritual connection, whether it's you believe in God or the universe or energy or the source, whatever it is that you
Mhm.
believe in, like making sure that you address that in tandem before or after, whatever works best for each individual, is so vital. Otherwise, all the work on like the health stuff is not going to stick, or it's going to come back in a
Yeah.
different way. There's this really good book I love called When the Body Says No. I think that's who
Yes,
it is.
because yes, I got
Gabor
it.
Mate.
Yes, because
And that's what a lot of what he talks about is like these emotional aspects, or these traumas, or these things can manifest in physical illness and disease, and it's pretty consistent over the board. I think the one that stuck with me the most was like women with breast cancer are more likely to have repressed anger, I believe is what he
oh,
said. And it's like that trend is like that. What's the connection between that and like our womanhood?
it's
Which
big.
is really interesting. It's really
Yeah.
big, especially women are constant people pleasers, and like our voice isn't heard or it's repressed. And like those have consequences to them, and it's going to come out through a physical manifestation of it.
So wow, that honestly, you're making me think so much. I'm just like blown away by it. Okay, so I absolutely love that you deal with women in a holistic way. It's like with your experience with trauma and repression and things like that, what have you noticed with triggers?
Okay. Did it trigger my PCOS? I think it was a band aid. over the PCOS. So I wasn't
Okay.
experiencing the symptoms quite as much. I think struggled with, I always struggled with acne. I always struggled with painful periods. I always struggled with these different things. Why I struggled with them, I don't really know. That's probably still something I'm exploring. I think it's a combination and a perfect storm of the food I ate when I was growing up and a teenager and the lack of sleep that I would get and those types of things, as well as, again, going back to being the youngest, I'm very much a people pleaser. I'm also a highly sensitive person. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm very sensitive to people's energies. And so if somebody in my household was, their energy was off, I would take that on and try and fix it, or it would really
Yeah.
impact me. So I think there's a little bit of a perfect storm. And then the birth control is just putting a band-aid on it, which is typically the situation. And then when I ripped that band-aid off, everything came out. But it came out in a physical way in which I would listen to it. That's the other thing that's important is your
Mm.
body's going to communicate to you 9 times out of 10 in a way that you're gonna listen to. So me having acne on my face, I was like, I got to do something right now about this. Whereas if mine was fatigue, maybe I probably wouldn't have noticed it because I'm not
Mm.
that extrovert of a person in the first place. So, like, me not being super interested in going to do activities or doing those types of things, I wouldn't have listened, I don't think, as
Wow.
soon or as immediately. So your body's always going to give you symptoms that you're going to listen to. And again, I have no TMI in my world. Like, I was very chronically constipated, but I didn't even realize it because it wasn't that big of a deal to me. But the
Yeah.
moment I was getting acne, I was like, this is a big deal to me
Yeah.
because I also grew up in a situation where like beauty was a very important thing. And it was something that I placed a lot of value on in growing up, that the moment like something tainted that, I was like, "Oh no, this is not gonna fly with me." And so I started listening. So again, your body's always gonna communicate to you in ways in which it thinks or it knows you will listen.
Oh my gosh. Which makes complete sense. I've grown up thinking, and I think that's just because of the awareness. I was born in 80, so I'm old, but like I, all through the 80s, all through the 90s, we just always thought our body was separate. You go to the doctor for your body, you go here for your spirit, you go here for all the different things you do for all the different parts of you.
Yeah.
And it really is all so intricately tied. I think that's wild. So to deal with your acne, then you started following a trail at that point?
Yeah, I kind of started following a trail with my physical side. And then I started noticing like some of the triggers for it emotionally and that kind of side. Like, for example, my partner, who him and I have been together for almost 4 years now, 3.5, for a long time, I had been single, or actually, let me take a step back. In high school, I had a boyfriend, and
Mhm.
that relationship went on far too long. And it was not like a very good relationship. I was very disrespected and like all those things. And it took me a while to figure out how to respect myself. And by respecting
Mm.
myself, it meant eliminating that person from my life. And so that was on and off, but for the most part, I was alone for a good portion of my early 20s. Once I found my current partner, him and I were like very inseparable in the beginning. And I also, though, give a lot to my family. So I have my sisters and my nieces and my mom and dad and a lot of cousins and a lot of girlfriends. So I always imagine my life as, or I talk to my therapist about this, as a pie. And I had a good fourth of it for myself because I wasn't tied to anyone else. I didn't have a partner. I didn't have that. Like, my sisters had their partners and my mom and dad have each other and like those kinds of things. So I had a good chunk of time for myself and I could give the rest of my time for everyone else. The moment I started dating him, all that time for myself was given to him. I didn't
Yeah.
adjust. I didn't take away time from other people to bring him in. I just took away time for myself, which
Mm.
wasn't because he wasn't demanding it or anything. It's just because I wanted to. And I didn't realize that was going to be such a big deal. And once it started hitting me, my SIBO came back and my acne came back and like
Oh,
all these things. And the moment I started being like, oh, I need to do things for myself again and readjust to fit him in with everyone else and keep that amount for myself, everything started falling back into place. And a part
wow.
of that too was that's when I started studying this. And but that was for me. That made me happy and made me
Mhm.
excited. And so by doing all that, I started giving back to myself and things started slowly clearing back up.
Wow. Huh. That's
Yeah.
incredible. So you balanced basically.
Yes. And that sometimes I'm better at it than others, but I will see the physical, as I keep saying, the physical manifestation of me not doing that. And I also have been, I tested positive for Epstein-Barr virus, which is one of the like herpes strains. And it's
Mhm.
very common with people that go through college and have like mono exposures and those
Oh,
types of
yeah.
things. And so anytime I'm stressed, my body, I'm down for the count. Like I cannot miss a night of sleep. I cannot over drink. I
Ah,
cannot be too stressed at work. Otherwise, I will get a sore throat, a stuffy nose, and a fever, and I'll be down for 2 to 3 days. And so I know if I can start feeling it coming on, I need to slow down. I really need to slow down because that flares. And it is something that I still want to like work on from a supplements, if you will, diet,
mhm.
exercise standpoint to address that. So that's not the case. But it is a good indication of, hey, you're doing a little more than your body is okay with right now.
Yes. And if you listen to your body, it tells you how to adjust. That's interesting because I have one of my friends has that as well. Like she just has it in her
Mm-hmm.
body, the Epstein Barr, and it flares. Do you think you said you're a highly sensitive person? I'm
Yeah.
definitely also a highly sensitive person, but I also do feel like my body is sensitive in interesting ways. It talks to me in different ways that are very
Mm-hmm.
interesting, that are very I don't always understand what it's trying to say. But do you think those correlate? Like your body being sensitive and being emotionally and like in tune with other people's energies and all of that? I've never actually thought about that until just now.
I haven't either, but sitting with it a little bit, I do think so because until you learn how to put up that boundary around your energy and somebody else's, you're going to take on their energy and that's going to change things in your body, whether
Yeah.
it's for the good or for the worse. And I can't imagine it not affecting you some way. I don't know. Have you noticed that? Like when you're with people that maybe their energy is different than yours or you're taking on their energy that you feel a type of way after?
Yes, definitely. I definitely feel drained for one, but also, yeah, my body feels it probably before because I'm a tad bit like removed a little as a coping mechanism. My body realizes it before I do most of the time.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I have
Mhm.
the reading people's energy thing, like a love-hate relationship with it because
Mhm.
I think it makes me a better coach. I think it makes me a better friend and partner and those types of things. But at the same time, I'm still working on that boundary of it being like, one, not a personal, not taking it personally that they have something going on and that's for them to deal with, also
Mhm.
trying not to go fix everyone because that's also
Yes.
not my job. But even I remember having roommates through growing up in college and stuff and being very sensitive to their energy. Like our we wake up in the morning and I'm like a chipper person in the morning, or some of my friends aren't. And I can feel their energy, whether I say good morning to them or I wait until a few hours later. And I think that was nice because it allowed me to be a good roommate. But at the same time, what kind of burden was that putting on me that I didn't realize? Trying to
And that's
regulate everyone.
yes. And
Mhm.
if you notice when people are off and you
Yeah.
try to adjust yourself to help the balance and the dynamic, that's what I haven't figured out fully yet either
Yeah.
is how do I read people's energy, and help and adjust to that without completely forgetting myself and my own.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that's something I've been working on too is like maybe not adjusting my energy. Maybe not
Yeah.
doing that unless I actually want to, unless it makes me feel good, because I don't know if that's serving anyone. And I don't know if
Right.
that's serving me in the long run. I was just talking to my cousin about this. She does my facials. And I love going to her because she also does energy work, but she's also a sensitive person. So I was talking to her about it. I
Mm.
was like, how do you not how do you do energy work on people, but then not take that on being such a in tuned and sensitive person? It took a while, but I had to put up a boundary. And now knowing that I can hold my boundary, I love going into those situations to try and help with their energy. But she is still at the same time able to protect her own, which I haven't gotten there yet. So I'm
Oh,
good
I'm
about client calls, not taking on their energy, that took a little while. Not We're taught as coaches to be connected with our clients, but not be overly invested in them because you're not there with them 24/7. You can't be there to make
Yeah.
decisions with them and tell them, oh, you said not to do that or this or that. So if they don't meet their goals or if they give up or whatever, like not to take that personally, not to take that on. That took probably a year into my practice to be able to when I was coaching, not just like doing the lab testing and stuff, but when I started coaching, it took probably a year for me to stop taking on my clients. And I've gotten really good at that, but still trying to get them to a better energy space with my personal life and like those in my family or my friends.
Mm.
I'm still working on that part.
That's a big thing when it's your family too, because you
Mhm.
definitely, like you said, like you are more invested in them. And that's something hard because you have been invested in them since you were super little,
Yeah.
just naturally.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's always something that I'm curious about. Is that something I learned or is that just how I was brought into this world? Because
Yeah.
I know at a very young age, I did a lot of that regulation and was sensitive to that because I also grew up with a father who was slightly volatile. He's much better now, and I now knowing why he was that way, it has made it
Yeah.
easier. He drops an egg and it's like the end of the world. So I was very aware of that and grew up with that. And frankly, me and my sisters are that way, very sensitive to people's energy. So that's why I'm like always wondering if it's something you're born with or something through nurture.
Yeah.
Both.
Curious about that. Yeah. Too. And then you think about epigenetics and like, oh my goodness,
Mhm.
what about fungus and parasites? And tell me your take on all of that, because that's something that's recently come into my world as well, like the knowledge of that.
There are some things that you cannot out eat or out meditate. I think there's a lot of nervous system work that needs to be done generally, but I do think sometimes people are in certain situations in which they have these bacterial overgrowths, metals or mold or whatever it might be, and it does need to be addressed because it is causing more dysregulation in their system. How it came to be, because we're all exposed to it, how it
Yeah.
came to be causing these symptoms, that's a good question to always ask too. A lot of the times it's the perfect storm of I was exposed at a time I was really stressed, so my immune function was low. So it was able to really get in there. Or I was traveling and I was eating on the go and I got exposed to a bacteria or a parasite or something. And if you're eating on the go, your stomach acid isn't strong enough. So then it slips right on through because that's one of our
Wow.
defense mechanisms. Metals and molds, I see a lot in practice, especially because I deal with a lot of women with hormonal imbalances. Now, I always start in the gut because I think that's on the roadmap that I was taught. That's always the first place to start. Some people, we skip that part because their gut looks good and we test for it and it
Hmm.
looks fine, but they're still having these other symptoms. It's when like metals and mold comes into play. It very much mimics things like estrogen. So it can really throw off hormonal balance. The thyroid, like heavy metals to stick on the thyroid and the bladder. So it depends on what I see when I run labs, specifically blood work, if I'm seeing like patterns of it or if they know they've been exposed to it. So that's how do mostly protocols with clients because they've gotten to a point where they do need to address these things. Not everyone does, but
Hmm.
a lot of the people that come to me are already ready. I have had one client who she had acne. I got her labs back and I was like, honestly, there's nothing in here that's screaming like this needs maybe a little dehydrated, but that's pretty much it. And I was like, oh no, what am I going to tell her? Come to find out when we do our lab review session, I'm like, here are a couple things, but we might need to test further to really uncover it. She's like, oh, I actually just broke up with my boyfriend and my acne's clearing up. And I'm like, oh, that was probably what was causing your acne in the first place. It wasn't
Yeah.
something metals or mold or bacteria or something. It was the emotional component of it.
Wow.
Rarely do I get somebody who's come to me where it's like that and they just need the emotional work done. A lot of the times it's a combination of the two. What came first,
Mhm.
the chicken or the egg? I can't answer that question. We just have to address it all at once.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so, like with mold toxicity, someone who's
Mhm.
been living in, because that's very difficult to figure out too, because it's everywhere. Is it in your
Yeah.
walls and how much is in your house and all the stuff?
Mhm.
How do you handle that type of stuff? The mold, like mold toxicity, people who have to move out of their house and all of
Yeah.
this stuff.
I find that a lot of people who are dealing with it are no longer living in it, but
Okay.
it's still in their system. So when you live in mold, what the toxins mold let off are called mycotoxins. And so that's typically what you're testing for in your system. Do you have those mycotoxins in your system? Like, for example, I'll use me because it's the easiest example I have. I know for a fact in college my dorm had mold. I know for a fact that I lived in San Diego and it was moist and the ocean and the fog and stuff. So the apartment I lived in after college. And then I worked at I was a spin instructor for a little while, which is a whole nother story. But the one of the rooms did have a little bit of mold in it. And I know that I am very sensitive to those things because I have poor detoxification pathways genetically, which is something I learned from looking into my genetics. But I was not presently living in mold when I needed to do those mold detoxes. And I knew I needed to do them one, because I did my blood work, and two, because I had so many symptoms, especially the like really painful periods, because
Mhm.
mold likes to mimic estrogen and cause estrogen dominance and things like that. I really needed to address it. And so you use things like binders and stuff like that to support your cells and to pull out any mycotoxins and things, making sure your detoxification pathways are cleared up. But the moment I finished my mold detox, I had zero pain on my periods. And it was wild because I swear not, but 5 months ago, I was in so much pain that I was like, I'm sure I'm having contractions right now. I've never had a
Wow.
child, and I
You're
am
like,
positive this is what it feels like.
oh my
I have
goodness.
watched it before. I've seen my sister give birth, and I'm like, this is it. I'm
Mm,
counting the time in between, like these contractions. Like, I feel like I'm going to throw up, like all these things. I have thrown up, I have passed out from them. Once I cleared
ugh,
that mold, it made such a big difference. That's also a big thing with women with hormonal imbalances is like heavy metals and mold. But if you do know that you're presently living in it, you have to address it.
I love that there is knowledge around that and what to do about it and how to
Mhm.
get you just have to move. You just have to get out of it basically
You
also.
can move or you have to remediate it, but you have to get down to the nitty gritty. So I can't just clean my wall with bleach and expect it to be clean. You have to like remove that section of the wall. And everyone's, I don't live in an old place, but also new homes have, I hung this painting and what if I accidentally hit a tiny little pipe? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Or when you're laying down, my dad's in construction and I should know these terms much better, but like when you're building a home and you're framing it out, but it rains and that wood is holding in all that moisture, and then you
Oh,
go build a home on top of it. You know what I mean? It doesn't have
yeah.
to be just old homes, but you do have to get down to the nitty gritty of it. And with that being said, some people might be more sensitive to others. You could have a family of five and two of them start showing the symptoms of mold exposure and the other three
Mm,
don't.
okay. Okay, that
So
makes sense.
everyone's a little bit different on that. But yeah, you don't have to move. You do have to remediate it though.
Okay. Okay.
And always getting your home tested is important.
And you can call who do you call to get your home tested?
There are a lot of specialties like in each like area wherever you live that will come out and do it for you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So with trauma, when
hmm
do you see what is the correlation? What is the
Okay.
correlation with your patients or if you've personally experienced anything like that? Health and trauma, can you treat one without the other?
Absolutely not. I think
Yeah.
trying to treat one without the other is going to put you in a never ending cycle. Now, with the caveat that if you treat your trauma, you're probably going to fix a lot of your symptoms and a lot of your health concerns, but there might be still a few things that are lingering, that are sticking around, that are holding on by its
Mhm.
last few fingers because you laid a really nice foundation for it to grow and to fester and to be a strong force within your system. So getting rid of the trauma is going to allow for that healing to happen, but you still have to do that healing most
Yes.
times. Every once in a while, if you're at the beginning of it, take that one client who, you know, started her acne started clearing up right after she got out of a bad relationship. That client maybe wasn't so far gone that other things started picking up too. But if she kept on that trajectory, maybe more things would have happened that she would have to address eventually.
Yeah. Okay. And
Yeah.
with nervous system dysregulation, how do you deal with that in general?
So all of my clients, we start off with a vision setting session. In that vision setting session, we do a meditation. And that meditation is one of the ways I like to show them like how regulating this can be of your nervous system. Because I personally think meditation is the best way to regulate your nervous system and breathing. So we do that. I also give my elevated wellness clients a meditation library so that they can pick and choose and use them as
Wow.
they need to, which is really great. And doing it on your own, we can do it in sessions too, so that you have that moment to regulate. But then we'll also talk about areas where there's stress and how can we overcome that. If it's, I'm stressed and I don't get to eat. And so then, this and that, will start putting together habits and stack them so that you do get that uninterrupted time to eat. So your nervous system feels calm and regulated when you're going to eat. A lot of it has to do with mindset work. A lot of it has to do with habits, motivation, etc. So that's kind of how I work on it, but I work on it 9 times out of 10 with everyone. There's few clients that are like not necessarily ready for it. And so I also try to meet clients where they are. If they're not ready for it, I'm not going to push it on them. Or if they don't feel comfortable with me yet doing that, I won't push it on them. But most people come fairly ready to work on that part too.
Okay, so we have got one more episode coming up with the beautiful Isabella. She's doing some amazing work in the world, as you can see. Isabella's going to take me through her initial intake process. She's going to dive into my health and my well being, which is a little vulnerable on my end, but worth it. I'll be stepping into the role of a bit of a guinea pig so that you can get an idea and a taste of what it's going to be like if you choose to work with Isabella. You don't want to miss it. You might find out something new about yourself through this episode and maybe a few surprising things about me too.
Calls, what I do is whenever somebody comes on board, I always tell them, like, I would love to know a little bit more about your story, whatever you feel comfortable sharing with me, anything that you think is important for me to know. And then that client or that prospect will share what their goals are, what their challenges have been. Sometimes it's quite lengthy and they go into a couple of years in the past, and sometimes it's more just present experiences and the moments that, or the aspects that they need support with. From there,
Okay.
I always make sure to thank them for being vulnerable with me, because as these topics are very vulnerable, talking about your health is a very vulnerable experience. So I always want to share my gratitude that they felt comfortable enough sharing that with me. And I try to do that throughout the journey because I want them to know that it's a safe space. I always tell them I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, women's health coach. That essentially means that I help find healing opportunities through functional lab testing, through conversation, through intake forms, to help you address healing opportunities, achieve your goals, and really feel empowered on your journey. The things I don't do are diagnose. I don't say you have this illness, this disease, that condition, because that's for our medical professionals. And I'm really looking at more root causes, more upstream things that could eventually lead to disease and illness and stuff like that. I also always mention that I look at things from a functional perspective versus, which means more of like optimal for the body, versus Western medicine looks at things that compare you to the average of the population. Unfortunately, the average of our population is getting sicker and sicker. So it's not really helpful to be compared to them. And it doesn't allow us to grow and to get better. So those are the things that I talk about. I also talk about, my program and stuff like that. So once they sign on, we do an onboarding call. Onboarding calls are just like the admin stuff, just the logistics where we get you signed up. I use Practice Better as my software, which is all HIPAA compliant, and I have them create an account. That's where we do messaging, your labs. We'll decide which labs that you want to run. Most of my clients run blood work and a GI map to get started with. Unless they've already run one before, we are very clear that there's a different thing that they should look into. Those are usually the places that I start, and then we can add on more later.
Okay.
So during that onboarding call, we set up all of that to make sure their labs are ordered, they have everything they need. Also, I send out a journal and their journal prompts and the meditation library that I have. I'll get them their intake form so I can understand their preferences when it comes to diet, because I do custom meal plans for the 12 weeks that we
Awesome.
work together. Yeah,
That's so
it's
cool.
really exciting. And I want to, if you're getting a custom meal plan and you don't like tomatoes, tell me that. I won't put tomatoes in there. It's easy for
Yeah.
me to do that if I know. So, anyways, I'll get all that information in the onboarding. From
Okay.
there, Labs take about 2 to 3 weeks to complete and to get the results back. So I usually say you'll sign up on May 1st. We'll probably not start till the end of May, beginning of June with actually getting things done. So it's a good thing for clients to know, if I want my first day to be June 1st, I need to backtrack and get this started at the beginning of the month. That way they have a good insight of like timeline, because things take a little bit of time. From there, whenever I get the results in, I will always message my client and say, your results are in. I need about a couple of days to go over them. I look at them very carefully and very thoroughly. I create an entire presentation so that I can go through
Awesome.
every marker, and I order for blood work about 70 markers versus if you go to your doctor, it's about 20. And
Mm,
if that. So I
wow.
go over it in extreme detail, their GI maps. I put screenshots of what's going on, what needs to be addressed. I put together a roadmap of how we're going to address all the healing opportunities, and then recommendations customized for diet, rest, exercise, stress management, and then supplementation list. It'll say supplement, when to take it, the dosage, if it's with food or not, and why. Because again,
Okay.
a big part of this is like empowering. So I want them to know why they're doing these things, not just like do it
Mm,
because I told you to. And the reason why I do this presentation is because I went to a naturopath for a couple of years. It's so much information, and if I didn't write it all down, I was screwed at the end of the day when I went home, because I didn't have it to reference back. I didn't know exactly what they said that marker meant or what it did or why it was out of range. So I try to give as much information, and it is so much, but at least I have a tangible thing to take home to review after. In that document, I also have a library, like an education library, where it says like what a white blood cell is, what a red blood cell is.
mm,
And that way, if you're like, okay, my white blood cells were low, what does that mean? Or what does that mean in my body? And I go over it, but not in extreme detail for all of them. So you can reference it back. Otherwise, we'd be there for quite some time. So they get that. I meet with my clients every other week for
okay.
those 3 months, for those 12 weeks. And so we pick a time, 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, and we meet 10 o'clock on a Tuesday every other week. And then, yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. At the end is when we decide, do most protocols go longer than 3 months, but I want them to start being empowered to make that decision on how much accountability they need, how much they feel like they can lead this journey. Do you want to keep this every other week cadence up, or do you want to just touch base once a month until you finish the protocol? So I feel like at that 3 month mark, people have a really good sense of, do I need the hand holding still, or do I feel like I can take the training wheels off and fly?
Okay. I
Yeah.
love that. So as far as payment, do you have different payment plans, or do people usually pay up front? How does that work?
Yeah. Also, one last thing too that I forgot to
Okay.
mention is I also, on the offboarding call, which is that last call, I put together another document that shows everything that we've worked on since we first started talking. So
Wow.
what your goals are, how they've changed now, what protocols we put together, like what goals and celebrations, because we always celebrate things in sessions. So it's really nice to see this. Okay, I have done a lot of work, because you're in the day-to-day weeds of it. So it
Mm,
is nice to take a step back and be like, wait, a lot has changed in 3 months. So that to answer your question, most people probably do payment plans. I would say safely say. I have had some clients that
okay.
pay all up front. Most clients do payment plans, and I'm totally fine with that. I never want financial stress to add to your health stressors, or health stressors to add to your financial stress, because you can't separate the two very much. And so that's why I have payment plans, because if it's going to be the barrier for entry, I want to break those down as much as possible. So I have payment
Awesome.
plans. There are three payments. The first one is more than the second two. The second two are equal payments. First one's more because it includes your lab tests. So the
Okay.
elevated wellness program includes two lab tests, which is the blood work and the GI map, 3 months of supplements, all your meal plans, a journal prompts, meditation library. It is access to me 24/7 essentially. So it's
Wow.
very comprehensive, all 6 sessions, very comprehensive. And so the first one is a little bit more because I'm going to order your labs for you. I want to get those going. And I don't want you to have to make a decision every time you have to pay if you're going to invest in yourself. So that's why I've taken the onus. You decide once. Are you doing this
Mm,
or not? If it's yes, we're good to go. I'll handle all the rest. I order your supplements for you. So you get 3 months of
wow.
supplements too. So I'll order them for you. Again, that payment that I've noticed clients have to make, they hesitate. And I don't want that stress to be on them. They make the decision once for 3 months, they don't think about it again.
I love how much attention to detail you've put into it. And then also that you, I think I've probably said this before, but I absolutely love that you are holistic and you go through
Mhm.
emotions. And not
Yeah.
only that, but I really do want to see the progress I'm making because
Mhm.
I'm almost 45 and I've been at this health thing for years, especially
Mhm.
all my adult life. I'm much more of a sensitive type physical
Yeah.
person. I've got a lot of my body seems sensitive and I've gone
Mhm.
through 3 pregnancies and things like that. So
Mhm.
there are so many different things going on in my body and in my gut for
Mhm.
sure. And I've had surgeries and all sorts of things. So anyone who can work with me, not only my hormones, but my gut and my skin and my hair and my nails and my my
Yeah.
hormone, everything. I think I've said that already, but migraines and autoimmune, I've got so many different things going on. And I like the possibility of working with you longer
Mhm.
than 3 months too.
Yeah.
But seeing the progress all the way through is going to be really beneficial for me specifically.
Mhm.
'Cause I can get easily discouraged with feeling like I'm spinning my wheels. And I do
Right.
feel like that with everyone else that I've been with.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I think that's the benefit of working with me slash what I've noticed with clients is like taking a pause to see all the work you've done. It's hard to do that when you're in the weeds of it, when you're living your life day to day. So it's nice to have somebody
mhm,
else who can be like, look at all this stuff that you've done. I know it may not feel so big and so impactful, but it's all the little moments that are going to add up to something bigger. So let's take a
yeah,
moment to look at those little moments.
yeah.
And it's easier for me to do because it's not my life. And I
Mm,
see you only every other week and I can talk to you and have those conversations. Whereas you're looking in the mirror every day, you're feeling your feelings every day, you're feeling how your gut feels, how your skin feels, how your hair and nails feel. Like you're experiencing those day to day. So it's nice to have somebody else's perspective that's a little objective, who's but still knows you and wants the best for you. So it's nice.
okay. I love that you do that. That I can see how that would be nice.
Yeah.
So do you want to do like a little consultation thing, like an example for
Sure.
me?
Yeah. I think it's important to note too in consultations, and yes, I would love to do one with you right now. In
Okay.
consultations, it's important to note too that you are deciding if you want to work with me, and I'm also deciding if I want to work with you because I want you to have the best practitioner on your team. I
Okay.
want you to have somebody who feels comfortable working with whatever conditions or experiences you're going through both ways, and that you feel comfortable and confident in me. So that's also like for everyone that's listening, something that's really important when you go into these conversations, it's a two-way street too.
Okay. I love that.
Yeah.
That's good boundaries and that's very healthy.
Yeah, it's because sometimes like I had recently like a father reach out to me about their son. And I was like, "Look, I want to help you because it's just in my DNA to want to help people, but I don't think I'm the best practitioner to help you." And
Mhm.
I think it's important to be honest. And I was like, "But what I can do is I'm going to go look for some people that I think are more in your realm." And I send it
Wow.
to him. And then he was like, "Also, my wife might want to work with you." I'm like, I can work with her. I can help
Yeah.
her. So it's nice because I do want them to have the best person on their team to help them.
So you care, but your
Mhm.
expertise is specifically women and
Yeah,
hormones and
yeah,
all of that realm. So I love that you do invest and you help whoever needs help to find the best care. It is
right.
difficult to find good care. I don't know why, but
Mhm.
it can be very frustrating. And then
Yeah.
if you get matched with someone or you find someone, however that works, that isn't the best practitioner for you, then it can be so stressful. I
Mhm.
appreciate that. I appreciate that honesty in you.
Yeah, yeah.
Not everyone is that
I
way.
think it's important because you're coming to a practitioner usually at a vulnerable time,
Mhm.
and that practitioner is also trying to run a business because we are business owners at the end of the day. So I
Mhm.
think the authenticity part is the only thing you can rely on at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
knowing that just because this client isn't for me and I'm not going to get the money out of it or whatever, the right ones are going to come to me at some point. And by leading with that authenticity, it attracts the right person
That's
at the
true.
right time.
Yeah. I believe that 100% in all of life. You
Yeah.
live authentically, you
Mhm.
attract the things, that you're putting out. Okay, let's get started with your mini
Perfect.
consultation here.
Okay.
Yeah. Wherever you want
Um,
to take me.
Yeah, yeah. Emily, I would love to know a little bit more about your story, whatever you feel most comfortable sharing with me, whatever you feel like is important for me to know when we potentially are working together. When and if we do work together, you can share even more with me, whatever you feel most comfortable sharing. I'd love to know more about your story. And then I will share a little bit more about myself and my journey, my program, and everything. And then we can go over any questions and see how we might work together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel comfortable kind of giving you an overview of my health journey. I have always had somewhat of a sensitive body. And I always think that
Hmm.
I tell doctors different things. Oh, if something's going to go wrong in this scenario, that's how I was when I was pregnant. I thought I'm in labor, and they didn't
Hmm.
believe that I was in labor for some because I don't know if I have a high pain tolerance or I don't show, I'm not screaming, but I'm in
Hmm.
labor. And so that's how I got put in like a storage closet as they were waiting on a room, but I was literally having a baby,
Mm,
like actively having a baby. And so when they checked me, they were like, "Oh my gosh," and they weren't ready. And that's happened to
yeah.
me 3 times. Every pregnancy was I was actively in labor and they were not ready necessarily.
Mhm,
And that I could go into the intricacies of that. But I have autoimmune disease in my family.
okay.
I've never really shown signs of that until the last 5 years when I went through a highly stressful period of my life. And then my joints started hurting and it was
Mhm,
consistent. And it was in my hands, specifically in my right hand. And I thought, oh no. So I went to the doctor. I've had recurring sinus infections all my life, sinus
mhm,
surgeries. So my body does typically have a hard time healing itself. And I've noticed
mhm,
this. Anyway, so I went through a lot of stress and then my joints started hurting. My whole
mhm,
body started hurting. And I've always been like, I go to the doctor and I say, I'm in so much pain. And sometimes it's the flu, or sometimes it's a sinus infection, or sometimes they're like, you don't have anything. And I'm like, I know I'm hurting. Like my
mhm,
entire body feels like I have the flu, but it wouldn't be
mhm,
the flu. So that's where I get very confused about my body because I'm hurting a
mhm,
lot, but sometimes they'll find something and sometimes they won't. But this time they ran my blood and like for autoimmune disease, and I had a positive ANA test,
mhm,
and they thought it was lupus, and then it wasn't lupus, and then they finally settled on fibromyalgia and
mhm,
rheumatoid arthritis. And I
mhm,
also have markers for Sjogren's disease. And so since then, I've had flares and recognized, I think that these flares were there random times in my life preceding this.
mhm.
I just didn't know exactly what it was. And I've always, I don't know if this goes together, but I have always had trouble digesting food, always, and chronic migraine. And so I've been on a journey with rheumatologists and medicine. Not a lot helps. If Honestly, it seems like hormonally, when my hormones go up and down, my body reacts. When my stress goes up and down, my body always reacts. And it's very difficult to figure out how to keep me steady because I'm fine one day and then the next day I'm not. And then also eating, I'm an anxious person. And so I have an anxious stomach. And, but I am now at this point in my life because I'm in my 40s. I think my stomach has just had it and it struggles digesting anything. I got into intermittent fasting. I don't eat gluten. I barely eat dairy. I just struggle to figure out what I can eat. And I mess up, then I don't know what my stomach's going to do, but it gets in the way. It definitely gets in the
Yeah.
way and it creates migraines as well. I'm so weird.
No, you're not
I'm so
weird.
weird. I don't know. I have so many random things, but stress and hormones affect me majorly.
Thank you for sharing with me and thank you for feeling comfortable and share your journey with me about your health. I have a couple follow-up questions if you're okay with me asking.
Sure,
Okay.
definitely.
When you said there's a few things, so I'm going to try to make sure I remember them all. When you said that you've had sinus infections your whole life, has that
Mhm.
been since you were like a young girl or like in your 20s, or when did that start?
That was more in my 30s,
Okay.
actually. So that's interesting. And that so weird. There's always some sort of major stress or trauma associated with these things, which is odd. But I've adopted two kids from Haiti, and that took
Mhm.
4 years and going back and forth. And it was very hard because it would be so emotionally stressful every time we left them
Yeah.
because they were stressing out. And it was the most heartbreaking thing. So it was during that time. And I started just getting sick and unable to get better. And they would put me on,
Mhm.
I was on a year of steroids and antibiotics
Mhm.
for a whole
Yeah.
year. Every time that I would get through with the antibiotics, I'd be okay for a day, maybe. And then I'd be completely sick again and miserable. So that's when I found a doctor and they were like, I was just completely congested all up here and I
Mhm.
wasn't releasing any of it or whatever, draining anything. And
Mhm.
so then I had sinus surgery. And 8 years later, I needed to have it again. And since
Mhm.
then, I went through a lot more trauma and
Mhm.
stress. And so that kind of, I think it coincided. I don't know. And
Mhm.
also, what simultaneously coincided with that was they said I had serotonin deficiency. They did all these
Mm.
tests because my muscles were cramping and I was having heart palpitations. And so they put me on like serotonin that helped that as well. And they were like, I know you don't feel like you're depressed or stressed, which I felt
Mhm.
stressed. I just didn't feel depressed. But I think I
Right.
also was not very, I had shut off a lot of, I shut off my internal, Emily, you're too sensitive, you're too stressed. I started ignoring my body just so I could get through some of the
Mhm.
stress. So that probably
Okay.
also had something to do with it. Did
Yeah.
that help?
Yes, yes, yes. That
Okay.
was very helpful. And then was there a moment in time when you feel like your body went from being how it was to being a sensitive body, or is that something you always feel like you experience?
I've always experienced that, I
Okay.
think. Yeah.
Okay.
I've always been a very sensitive kid.
Yeah. The reason why I ask is because there is this woman I follow. Her name is Michelle Shapiro, and she talks about the highly sensitive body
Hmm.
and how there's a lot of mast cell activation and histamines and things like that that create this sensitivity in bodies that is not like anyone else's, and the symptoms are very different person to person. So it's hard to get diagnosed with something like that when everything's so different than everyone else.
Hmm.
The other reason why I asked about sinus infections is because mold and mycotoxins are very highly correlated with reoccurring and chronic sinus issues. So if at any point you were exposed to mold and you were breathing that in, that lives in like your sinus cavities. That can then cause these reoccurring situations because antibiotics isn't going to clear mycotoxins like. So that's why I was asking a little bit more.
That's
The other
interesting too.
the other thing too is like stress generally. Everyone's capacity to handle stress is different. So it's interesting to hear like a lot of these moments have happened around stressful times. Part of the work we would do together is understanding your resilience. One, building up some resilience so that because life is gonna life, right? You need to be able to acknowledge that things are gonna be up and down. So finding rebuilding and then finding your tolerance levels and how you can address those as they come up. So that's some of the things I was thinking of. And then have you worked with a functional practitioner in the past? And if so, what have you done or what has worked, what hasn't worked?
I have some,
Mhm.
and I have signed up for myself and for my son. And so
Mhm.
I ended up going more for my son and not having as much time to go for me. But when I did go, they tried to slowly work on my nutrition intake
Mhm.
and put me on several different like supplements and vitamin things like that. I didn't do a whole lot with them actually because I was mostly working with my son. I've also done a lot of work with an acupuncturist, and
Mhm.
she put me on a lot of supplements. That really helped me a lot
Good.
for a long time. And then I
Yeah.
and then I didn't have as much money. I went through a period where I didn't have as much
Mhm.
money, so I wasn't able to continue that on. And I do want to say we moved into a house that was older and might have had mold. I don't know. I didn't, especially back then I didn't know to look at that kind of stuff, but
Sure.
that was specifically where they started,
And was
where
that
my
during
sinus
oh, so
infections
that was during that time when your sinus happened.
started.
So
I
old
wonder.
houses, new houses, they both are easily susceptible to mold. You imagine somebody's building a house next door to you and it rains and it's not a finished house. So,
Gosh.
or you hang up a painting at a new house and you accidentally hit a tiny little pipe. So old and new is very much possible. Old houses get the rep of having more moldy situations. That's very possible. And if it
Hmm.
coincides when you moved and like the sinus infection started and you had stress, like that's a perfect storm for these things to take hold. And you have a sensitive body, like that is
Yeah.
the perfect storm. So I'd be curious to see if there's any lingering situations there, because also migraines, gut issues, rheumatoid arthritis is tied to a lot of bacteria overgrowth in the gut, like certain bacteria, specifically Citrobacter and Klebsiella and things like that. Klebsiella, I think is how you say it. Anywho, yeah, a lot of the things that you're saying, I love acupuncture. I always recommend clients doing some form of Chinese medicine in that sense. So
Mm.
it's good to know that is a stress management technique that we can include as a part of your protocol and things like that. But is there anything else that you think is important for me to know before I tell you a little bit more about myself and my practice?
Well, I think that's a good general overview. I have also struggled with, especially now, this is during times of stress. So I guess it's the sensitive body, but I had some acne and things, and they
Mhm.
flare, and then it goes away, and it flare. It's so hard to
Yeah.
know why, but
Yeah.
I've also
Okay.
struggled with that. So that's me.
Acne too. And then hormonal fluctuations was the other thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. My
Okay.
hormones have always been very sensitive.
Yeah, as they are. So that's the other thing is hormones are never usually the root cause of what's going on. They are the downstream effects of upstream root causes like heavy metals and mold and gut imbalances and dehydration and nutrient needs and
Mm.
those types of things that then hormones are so incredibly sensitive or stress. They're so incredibly sensitive to all these things that you need to address these things and then the hormones rebalance as needed. So those are some of the things everyone's, I have hormonal acne. I'm like, yes. And there's something that's messing with your hormones that's then leading to the acne. So I always try to like make that distinction. So the part of what I do is like a little bit of education as well, so that you can start leading your journey and feeling empowered on it. So I'll take a step back
Okay.
and tell you a little bit more about myself. I know I mentioned it already, but since we're doing this, I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, a women's health coach. I work with women to address healing opportunities. At the same time, I created Live Big because I want women to feel like they have a safe space, to feel heard, to feel validated, and to feel empowered on their health journey. So, no two journeys look the same, but I
Mm.
usually start with running functional lab tests, and I use those tests to find healing opportunities. I never diagnose, I never say you have this illness, that disease, etc. I might say you have patterns of, or it looks like you have a chronic load of. And if there's anything that I flag, I will say, this is something you should chat with your doctor about, or something like that. With that being said, I always create a customized protocol based on your results and based on your intake forms that goes over diet, rest, exercise, stress management, supplementation, all tailored to
Mm.
your specific needs. So no two protocols look the same. If you went through my inventory of protocols, none of them look the same because this is your journey and it is very bio individual and it cannot look the same as somebody else's. I also do one-on-one coaching within that. So we meet every other week. You get your supplements, you get your tests. All of that to say is my goal at the end of the day is to help you achieve your goals or to create the path to achieve your goals, to help you, more importantly for me, is to help you build a deeper relationship and connection with your body. And I
Mm.
think that's the missing link is that mind body connection with most women.
Yes.
Somehow, somewhere it got severed and we see them as two different entities. You can't work on one without the other. So we'll do a little bit of reflection and stress management and those types of things. At the end of the day, 9 times out of 10 clients come back just feeling like I may be on the path to achieving my goals or I have achieved my goals, but more importantly, I've built a relationship and connection with my body.
Yeah.
That's what I do in practice, logistically, how that works. Just so you know, I have payment plans. It's a 3-month program. Your supplements, your labs, everything is included. Meal plans, but not the food itself, a journal, meditations, all of that is available. And then at the end
Wow.
of those 3 months, we decide how we want to move forward together. It's that building that connection with your body so you can constantly support it as life happens.
Yeah.
So I like
I
to make
love that.
sure. Yeah.
That's
Um,
very realistic.
yeah. I don't want to give false hope or false
Mhm.
promise because I'm always going to be in your corner. I'm always going to be on your side and I'm always going to be here for you. If next year you're like, I need a tune up, we'll be here and we can work together because again, life is going to happen and you might go through more stress or you might be at this even better place and you're like, I want to take it a step further. What else can I do? And
Yeah.
so there's so many ways to go about it that there's no real finish line because you can keep getting better and keep growing in your journey or on your journey.
Well, see, and that excites me. And it's
Yeah.
also, we think there is supposed to be a finish line. So
Mhm.
many things in life, like we think,
Yeah.
oh, if I just get to this place, if I
Mhm.
buy the house, or if I get through this stressful situation, it's like we subconsciously think that without even
Mhm.
realizing it, and then we set ourselves up for stress and future failure, because
Mhm.
we're, or not failure, but future disappointment. So I really appreciate that. And what I do want, the second half of my life, which I'm looking at, which is such a weird thing because I still
Mhm.
feel really young inside, but
Yeah.
the second half of my life, I want to be in really good shape so I can enjoy, so I can travel and
Mm.
be a grandmother one day and
Yeah.
actually really live and enjoy,
Mhm.
especially because I have much more wisdom than I had before and experience. And I don't want to be so physically exhausted that I can't live in that.
Yeah.
I am excited.
Good.
Okay. Thank you, Isabella.
Yeah,
How
of
do
course.
people, I want to ask how people can get in touch with you or find you in order to work with you.
So my website is livebigwhc.com and
Okay.
there is a little link to book a consultation. Again, I always say to book a consultation because you need to make sure I'm the right fit for you and I need to make sure I can help you and
Right.
support you on your journey. So there's a link to book a consultation call. It's 15 minutes, it's free. I also have social media, which is at livebig.whc.
Okay.
So you could always DM me and we can chat a little bit too. But yeah, those are like the main ways to get in contact with me.
Okay. You're so easy to talk to and approachable.
Oh,
And I
good.
really like that. We will put a link in the show notes, and then also I'll put it on my website as well whenever we post about
Amazing.
the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And this was such a beautiful conversation. It's a conversation. Sometimes I need to remind myself some of these things, like that there is
Mhm.
no finish line, that this is life and we're enjoying the journey versus trying to get to the end. As much as maybe you took away or those that are listening took away, I took away so much. And
Oh,
so I just really wanted to say thank you. And I appreciate the thoughtfulness and the questions and the opportunity to share more.
thank you so much for listening. Honestly, your support means the world to me. I can't even put into words. I see you. I value you, each and every one of you. So, as always, if you have a story to tell, we would love to hear it. Send us a message. We're all ears. You can find us on all the social media platforms, even on TikTok. And if you want to catch up on our past episodes and hear some amazing stories from some amazing people, you can find us anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. And until next time, bye bye.
Will you start a riot? Will you get ignited? Burn it down until you can't feel it rising. True love, peace, and kindness are the only minds in this new world arriving. Will you start